In the 7th year of our marriage, Oscar set off fireworks across the whole city to celebrate his little lover's birthday. Are you mad? He called to coax me, his voice lazy and tinged with amusement. She's young, childish. Just indulge her a little. When Oscar said this, I was tangled up with his best friend. Send me the plan later. I'll give my boyfriend the same treatment. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the call, followed by the sound of glass shattering on the floor. Later, Oscar refused to divorce me. Break up with him, okay? His eyes were red, and his smile was forced and ugly. Or, let him be the side lover. I can accept anything, as long as you don't leave me. Chapter 01. Ruth wasn't the first little lover to show up in front of me, but she was the one who'd stayed by Oscar's side the longest. She spent half an hour telling me their grand, earth-shaking love story. I propped my head with one hand and listened quite seriously, nodding occasionally. Should I book the guest house in South City? Which looks better, the auroras in Norway or the tulip fields in Keukenhof? For a New Year's trip, which place do you think is more suitable? Ruth gradually came back to her senses. Don't think that just because you say all this, I'll back off. Her eyes reddened as she bit her lip, defending their love, like a fragile little white flower trembling in the wind. Oscar promised me he'll spend New Year's Eve with me this year. Give up already. Don't think that tying him to your side means you can win him back. Even if you keep his body, you won't keep his heart. Her shouting stunned me. Why would I want Oscar, physically or emotionally? She's not afraid of catching something. But I am. I slowly realized. Oscar apparently hadn't made our dead-in-name-only marriage clear to Miss Ruth here. Ruth was overwhelmed by her emotions, tears falling in huge drops. She was genuinely afraid I'd steal Oscar from her. After all, legally, I am Oscar's wife. And emotionally, Oscar and I grew up together. All the romance he gave her, I'd gotten before. And the things he'd never given her, I'd gotten too. Unfortunately, promises only last at the moment they're made. It took me many years to understand that. Ruth's tears splashed onto my arm. Disgusting. I sighed and got up to grab tissues. The door was suddenly kicked open. Oscar, who should have been boarding a plane, appeared at the doorway in a hurry. It had been about 30 minutes since he got the news. Driving from the airport takes at least an hour. He must have floored the gas, speeding all the way. A lawless man. Oscar, Ruth whimpered, looking at him with watery eyes. Oscar strode forward in quick steps. His brows were full of hostility and attention he himself didn't even realize. He pulled Ruth into his arms in an absolutely protective posture. His arm brushed past me, knocking me back onto the sofa. Are you insane? I frowned and said bluntly. Oscar ignored me. He looked Ruth over from head to toe, and only after making sure she was perfectly fine did he exhale in relief. Barely audible. What are you crying for? If you're scared, why come here to stir up trouble? His tone was harsh, but the way he wiped Ruth's tears, gentle, so delicate. Heh, this young master and young madam really treated me like an NPC in their little drama. Annoyed, I lit a cigarette and pulled out my phone. After unlocking it, the screen was still on the report from my secretary, President Ramos. He didn't accept the items, and the flowers were returned as well. He also said he'd only talk to you, and told us to get lost. Look at someone else's little lover, soft, clingy, full of emotional value. And look at mine. I felt even more irritated. Chapter 02. Oscar coaxed Ruth away. The little girl had come to confront me with a fight-to-the-death kind of courage, stubborn. Really, she seemed to still have a lot to say, but when her eyes met Oscar's slightly cold gaze, she swallowed everything obediently. Oscar sat down on the sofa opposite me. His long legs were casually spread, one hand propping his head as his fingertips pressed against the sharp line of his brow. Alice. She's just a young girl. Oscar was knocking on my patience. I scoffed, narrowed my eyes through the smoke. She doesn't know her place. I said, she's a kid, she doesn't understand the twists and turns of these things. He lifted a brow lazily. That necklace she bid against you for last time, should I have someone send it to you tomorrow? I flicked the ash off my cigarette, neither agreeing nor refusing. The North City project, give me another 3%. I said, wasn't that deal settled last month? Oscar frowned. You're already getting the bigger cut. I didn't bother responding. It's not like Oscar is the only one in the world who needs to coax his little lovers. My silence meant there was no room for negotiation. Oscar grew irritated. He knew what methods I was capable of. After all, before Ruth, more than a few others had learned the hard way. The first girl who dared to provoke me was just in her early 20s, wearing a red dress like a blooming rose. Arrogant. She smashed my car and said Oscar would pay for it. She even said the one who isn't loved is the real homewrecker. Now she's in prison working the sewing machines. It's not like I never fought with Oscar. After all, when I married him, I still believed in pure love. The first time he cheated, I asked for a divorce. But because of certain things, we never got divorced. Oscar begged me, lowering himself completely. He braced his hands on either side of me on the sofa and looked up at me. For a moment, it was like seeing him back in our senior year of high school, when he confessed to me. Back then he also looked up at me like this, rebellious eyes full of tension. Darling, my queen, just tell me, yes or no. Don't keep me hanging, okay? Once there's a first time, there's a second. Cheating raised his threshold for excitement. Oscar broke his promises again and again. He became more and more at ease with it. He could look me in the eyes, while I was breaking down, screaming, crying, and calmly tell me this circle is just like that. And he could also, when a little lover impulsively tried to stab me, step in front of me, then, full of rage, grab her by the throat and warn her, "What the hell are you? You dare touch my wife?" I never understood why Oscar was this deranged. I used to not understand. Now I simply don't care enough to. Fine. In the tug-of-war, Oscar finally conceded, gritting his teeth as he agreed to my additional profit cut. As the smoke dispersed, his face gradually came into focus. He really wasn't like the boy from when we were 17 or 18. Oscar had turned me from a gorgeous young wife into a cold-blooded femme fatale. Then later, he once almost succeeded in making me a discarded socialite. That period, nerves stretched tight, breaking at the slightest disturbance, surviving every night only with tablets of quetiapine fumarate, was the time I least want to remember. Even I felt I looked monstrous back then. To say I felt no resentment would be impossible. Now I've taken full control, secured my position on the board. This cliché drama, played this far, is enough to make anyone lose interest. I walked toward Oscar, pressed the lit cigarette butt onto his chest. Oscar's smile froze, his body tensing reflexively. Find a time to get the divorce done. I ground the cigarette out on him and said it calmly. Chapter 03. Oscar didn't respond. He returned to his usual careless expression. He pulled my wrist over and pressed the still warm cigarette butt back into his own chest. Feel better now? I've been too busy lately and neglected you. We can go on a trip over the new year. You're afraid of the cold, so we can choose somewhere warmer. Oscar. I narrowed my eyes, my voice so cold it could freeze. I said, find a time and get the divorce done. Within a week. I'll have my assistant sort out the assets under our names and draft a divorce agreement. If you have objections, contact me. And stop talking to me like that. I'm not one of your little pets. Only cheap little playthings get coaxed into losing their minds with just a few sweet words. Those in positions of power only feel insulted by it. Reason? Oscar's smile faded. Because of some fireworks? Fireworks? I paused, then remembered. A week ago was Ruth's birthday. Oscar celebrated her grandly, filling the whole city with fireworks. 520 drones shifted in the night sky, spelling out Ruth's name. Oscar had always done things ostentatiously. When he liked someone, he indulged them to a suffocating extent. In the third year of our marriage, the first little lover he publicly acknowledged came to show off in front of me. The girl wore a red dress, holding a bouquet of roses. She stood barefoot on top of my car, dancing. Paint had been splashed all over the vehicle in thick layers, destroying it beyond recognition. That car had been Oscar's coming-of-age gift to me. It was also the most valuable gift I'd received since being brought back from the countryside into the Ramos family. At that time, both I and that car held special meaning. My eyes turned red with anger, and I told the security guards to call the police and drag her down. Oscar stopped me. He lifted his phone with one hand, recording the girl's reckless dancing. Admiration filled his eyes. She's a delicate young thing, easily impulsive. Why do you need to come at her so hard? It's just a car. Losing it won't kill you. Pick another one. I'll pay for it from my private account. Consider it compensation on her behalf. To be fair, Oscar had given quite a few girls the illusion of being the one and only. He had ruined more than a few lives. It has nothing to do with the fireworks. I'm seeing someone else. I said it calmly, as if casually commenting on the weather. Chapter 04. Impossible. Remember what happened at the Imperial Club? You can't do it, Alice. Oscar smiled with absolute certainty. After the dancing girl was dragged off my car, I slapped both her and Oscar. When I raised my hand to hit her again, Oscar grabbed my wrist. The girl seized the chance and smashed the roses into my face. The thorns that hadn't been trimmed properly left bloody scratches on my skin. The one who isn't loved is the real homewrecker. You should divorce already, old woman. I struggled with everything I had, wanting to tear her mouth apart. My wrist twisted painfully, and I still couldn't break free. Oscar didn't refute her words, nor did he stop her tantrum. When we got home, I smashed everything I could and demanded a divorce. What did you say back then? At the wedding. What the hell did you swear to me? And the first time you cheated, you begged me. Told me to give you a chance. You said no divorce, and that there wouldn't be a next time. Fine. I believed you. And what happened? Oscar, are you fucking an animal? How can you treat me like this? I screamed hysterically. My reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window looked like a woman carrying a century of grudges. Oscar leaned against the railing, watching my meltdown with near indifference. Alice, this circle works like this. You need to learn to accept it. You can go find someone too. Why not have an open marriage? You're not a child. Why believe in fairy tales? As for divorce, Alice, you're the one who can't live without me. It felt like being plunged into ice water. At that time, it was true. I couldn't leave Oscar. My mother had been the Ramos family's legal wife. When the mistress replaced her, she asked for nothing and walked away. I was left in the countryside for years. It took nearly everything I had just to squeeze my way into the Ramos family's power center. Political struggles, endless infighting, those illegitimate sons and daughters teamed up to suppress me. I had to admit I borrowed Oscar's influence back then. I had thought the open marriage suggestion was just something he said casually. But the next day, Oscar took me to the Imperial Club. Alice, you should give it a try. He ordered 20 male models for me, lined up in a row. A warm hand rested on my shoulder. One of them called me sister, then leaned in and placed a tentative kiss at the corner of my lips. I met a pair of eyes full of flattery and servile eagerness. A strange, indescribable discomfort rose in me. That discomfort peaked the moment I caught Oscar's amused, watching gaze. I shoved the man away abruptly and turned to vomit. Oscar, you're disgusting. I vomited until my face went pale, threw down those words, and almost fled the place. After that incident, Oscar never again mentioned letting me go find someone. He seemed to take it for granted that I could never break my moral boundaries. But people change. Thunder rolled across the sky. My thoughts snapped back. Think whatever you want, but I'm not joking about the divorce. If you don't agree, I'll take it to court. Honestly, you've handed me enough evidence of your affairs over the years. If it comes to that, both families' stock prices will tank. Think carefully. I finished speaking, grabbed my coat and car keys, and headed for the door. In this heavy rain, where are you going? I said, weather's bad. I'm going to keep my boyfriend company. Oscar could no longer smile. Chapter 05. It had been typhoon season recently. When I came upstairs from the underground garage, I shivered from the cold. The moment I walked through the door, a collectible figure came flying toward me. I dodged it quickly. I said I didn't want. Santiago's brows were tinted with faint anger. When he saw it was me, his voice cut off abruptly. So you still remember to come back? He instinctively took a step toward me, then stiffly forced himself to stop. His beautiful fingers pressed against his reddened eyes. I pulled him onto the sofa to sit with me. I've been too busy these few days. Didn't have time to take care of you. Half a month ago was Santiago's birthday. I had agreed early on to spend it with him, but I ended up on an inspection trip and missed it. Last week I told him I'd make it up to him by staying with him for 3 days. Then Oscar's damned fireworks incident blew up, and I had to deal with the media and the elders of both families. I broke my promise again. Santiago was wearing a silk white shirt, pressed into the corner of the sofa by me. I had personally chosen this sofa. It was big enough. The North City project, Oscar's family and your sister are both working on it. Oscar agreed to give another 30%. I'll split half of that with your sister. I continued coaxing him. The Law family's situation was similar to the Ramos family. Chaotic. Illegitimate children growing like weeds. Santiago Law's mother had been the legal wife. He never worried about money growing up, and studied his favorite, oil painting. When Oscar first brought me into this circle, Santiago left the deepest impression on me. Cold and ethereal, like a damn celestial being. A year ago, Santiago's mother suddenly committed suicide without warning. She left behind a son and daughter. They were quickly thrown out of the house, and most of their assets were devoured. On the day Santiago decided to kill himself, he ran into me, and then, he became my lover. You smell like him, Santiago suddenly said, his eyelids turning red. You always try to buy me off. Jewelry, cars, shares, I never wanted any of that. Do you think I'm no different than those who sell themselves out there? Doing this for my sisters, I gently bit his lower lip. I'm not buying you with those things. I'm coaxing you. Santiago stared at me blankly. His eyes were still red. He was truly beautiful, and the way he looked on the verge of tears made people ache for him, and also stirred an inexplicable desire to destroy him, make him cry until he broke apart. Cruel, terrifying desire. What am I supposed to do with you, Alice Ramos? Santiago's voice was so soft it was barely audible. I was silent for a moment. I'm planning to divorce Oscar. Santiago's eyes snapped up to mine. You're coaxing me again. He thought of something and his expression dimmed. Emotional con artist. He was truly adorable. Something in my chest felt swollen and warm, like it had been soaked in water. I couldn't help curling my lips into a smile. How is that coaxing you? My hand slipped beneath his shirt. This is. We pressed closely against each other, and I could feel the heat rising rapidly from his body. He instinctively arched his waist. His cheek brushed against mine. Don't tease. The sound of his voice tangled my thoughts. Santiago was especially good at breathing provocatively. His voice was beautiful, too, a stark contrast to the cold, distant persona he showed on the surface. Stop pretending to be proper. Santiago's hand stroked my waist and back, his breath breaking apart. His voice carried scorching heat. You like hearing it, TSK. Another little kink of mine, caught again. Chapter 06. After confirming that I truly intended to get a divorce, Santiago visibly brightened. He was easy to coax when he was happy. I took him out shopping and to eat, picking out a few outfits for him along the way. During the trip, I kept feeling a pair of eyes secretly watching me. I turned around twice but didn't notice anything unusual. In the underground garage, Santiago sat in the passenger seat, tilting his head back as he drank water. His Adam's apple moved gently. His lips were damp and glossy. When he wasn't showing any expression, he looked naturally cold. My gaze drifted downward, landing on the faint marks on his neck. Just thinking about how someone so reserved and proper could be so wildly indulgent in private. My heart swelled with a tingling electric rush. Santiago curled a finger and wiped the moisture from the corner of his lips. He glanced at me. That look hooked me immediately, and I leaned over to kiss him. My phone began vibrating endlessly at the worst possible moment. I pressed the lock button twice impatiently. Hung up. It rang again, and again. Who the hell? He better actually have something important to say. I grabbed the phone, annoyed, and looked at the screen. Oscar. Great. Even more annoying. Santiago saw it too. He narrowed his eyes and unbuttoned the first button of his shirt. What is it? I answered the call, one hand gripping Santiago's fingers, pressing into his knuckles. Who are you with right now? Oscar's voice carried restrained anger. Santiago unbuttoned the second button, revealing a beautifully shaped collarbone and half his chest. I took one look and couldn't look away. None of your business. Do you need something or not? If not, I'm hanging up. The divorce agreement is being drafted. Someone's already gone to inventory the real estate today. Don't rush me. He's acting like he's checking up on me now that we're about to get divorced. Insane. I didn't agree to the divorce. Oscar's voice dropped lower, like he was grinding the words out from between his teeth. Santiago unbuttoned the third button. He wasn't used to doing stuff like this outside, and his brows were slightly furrowed, cheeks flushed. His pale, firm muscles were streaked with red, kiss marks, finger marks, all over him. He gently bit the tip of my finger, then pulled my hand onto his chest. His gaze held a wicked, thrilling kind of provocation. He breathed lightly, deliberately, just for me. Agree or don't agree. I have plenty of ways, I said, hanging up. No situational awareness whatsoever. Couldn't he tell I was busy? Wait, if you insist on divorce, then let's talk first. Are you coming home tonight? Maybe it was my imagination, but I actually heard a trace of caution in Oscar's voice. If it really came to a lawsuit, time, energy, money, I'd lose a lot. A peaceful divorce would be the most dignified route. I thought for a moment. See you at 4 this afternoon. If we finished quickly, I'd have time to drive back. Oscar seemed like he wanted to say more. I'm busy. Stop bothering me. We'll talk in the afternoon. I hung up before he could respond. Santiago had already pinned my hand against the passenger seat. Who the hell could resist that? Chapter 07. When I arrived that afternoon, Ruth was there too, bringing the mistress to a divorce discussion. How was that any different from flipping me off to my face? I frowned, and before I could speak, she interrupted. I recorded everything. Miss Ramos, you and your cheating partner. I raised a brow and looked at Oscar. So? Did he plan to use this to extort more money from me? Ruth pulled out her phone. The photos showed Santiago and me being intimate. One of them was actually taken pretty well. Santiago and I at a cat cafe. He looked adorable like a cat. I had my arm around his waist, grinning. He was holding my waist protectively, lips twitching upward in a restrained smile he couldn't hold back. Honestly, it would make a nice wallpaper. Afraid I wouldn't see clearly, Ruth tapped the live photo. A gridded, hateful slut played clearly. She hurriedly closed the photo and didn't dare look me in the eyes. But she still forced herself to defend her so-called love. Since you cheated, why not let Oscar go? Wouldn't it be better for both of you to move on? What season's expired broadcast are you watching, little girl? Shut up. Oscar's cold voice cut her off as he snatched her phone and smashed it against the wall. The screen shattered instantly. Get out. Ruth's eyes reddened at once. She looked at Oscar in disbelief, then ran out crying. The living room was left with just Oscar and me. Who is he? He gritted the words out. Face ugly. Oscar had known Santiago longer than he had known me, or either of us had known one another. He shouldn't have failed to recognize him. Before the Law family fell apart, Santiago Law was one of Oscar's closest buddies in the circle. After all, Oscar loved dragging people into his midnight madness, racing, climbing mountains, doing stupid shit. Others wouldn't necessarily go. But Santiago, though he looked aloof, was soft-hearted and easy to persuade. On the day his sister was forced to kneel before the illegitimate children, he went to Oscar for help. Oscar gave him money with a clean expression, while secretly collaborating on a project with the very illegitimate son in power. Sometimes, through a thin layer of skin, it's impossible to tell whether a heart is warm or cold. Growing up together, Santiago understood what it meant. He never went to Oscar again. Their contact ended there. And in the photos, Santiago was wearing sunglasses, harder to recognize. He's my boyfriend. I admitted it directly. Cut ties with him, and I can pretend nothing happened. Oscar took a deep breath. I'll get rid of Ruth too, in the future. I cut him off. There is no future for you and me. Cut ties because of you? Who do you think you are? Oscar's eyes reddened. That kind of man is obviously one of those who sells himself. Do you know how many women he's serviced behind your back? What does he have that I don't? I listened to his accusations in silence, and suddenly, something clicked. Oscar's poisonous possessiveness and macho entitlement had always been there. That night at the Imperial Club had been his obedience test for me. Deep down, he always believed I would never betray him or the marriage, using my morals as his shield. Truly disgusting. He's taller than you, younger than you, better looking than you. We're compatible, in bed and out of it. As for you, I glanced at Oscar with disgust. To be fair, he was good-looking, deep, sharp features and that cocky aura. I used to love that kind of face when I was in high school, obsessed with gangster movies. But now, all I saw was ugliness. If you have time, go get some skin tightening done. Otherwise, standing next to your little lover, people who know will think it's a kept woman arrangement. People who don't might think she's serving her dad. That old face of yours makes me sick. Chapter 08. Oscar agreed to the divorce. I pushed my assistant and the legal team, and within 3 days the agreement was drafted. I wanted to go file it the same day, but Oscar held the agreement in his hand and still wouldn't sign. He made one request, that during the 30-day divorce cooling-off period, I live with him and eat with him every day. Miss me already? I had just finished showering, my hair half dry, holding up my phone. I was video chatting with Santiago when Oscar made the request. I thought for half a minute and agreed. That same day, he signed the paperwork and accompanied me to file the divorce registration. Now a week had passed. The lighting on Santiago's side was dim. He seemed to have turned on an ambient lamp. No, he was handling something with his hands. Eyes lowered, his voice cold. Yeah, if you don't miss me, I'll hang up then? I said on purpose, a smile almost spilling from my eyes. I liked pulling at him like this. It was thrilling. Santiago seemed to let out a quiet scoff, and, maybe intentionally, brought the thing in his hand closer to the screen. That was, your new toy arrived. I didn't feel embarrassed at all, laughing with my shoulders shaking. I reminded him, baby, it's your new toy. Whoever it's used on is who it belongs to. You've been getting kinkier lately, Santiago commented. I was just about to tease him when the bedroom door was knocked on. Alice, I made a late-night snack for you. Oscar's voice carried through. Santiago raised an eyebrow, amused. Quite the luck you've got. Someone bringing you snacks in the middle of the night. Do you want the snack? Or do you want me? He lowered his voice. My focus snapped back immediately. You. No hesitation. Good girl. Santiago's eyes curved as he smiled. God. He was stunning, like a lone sailor encountering a siren who had never lost a single battle. And I was willingly seduced, willingly sinking. Chapter 09. Although this house was under my name, I didn't plan to continue living here after the divorce. Oscar and I owned many properties. This one was considered our marital home. Most of the good and bad memories were here, and it disgusted me. I began gradually moving out my things. Oscar noticed quickly. Alice. The photo in the living room. Oscar rushed upstairs, one slipper flying off as he ran. His eyes landed on the photograph I had cut into pieces in my hand. His voice cut off instantly. How could you? His throat tightened, and his eyes turned red. This was our photo. It belonged to both of us. How could you destroy it without saying a word? What are you getting worked up over? I frowned, puzzled. It's just a few photos. Besides, you once let Ruth tear up our wedding photos, the ones without backups. So I assumed you didn't care. Our wedding photos were taken by a well-known photographer. Both sides had kept a copy of the negatives. Oscar deleted his copy to please Ruth, and 6 months ago, that photographer died unexpectedly. The negatives on both sides were gone. Oscar's face went pale instantly. His hand, hanging by his side, trembled ever so slightly. Without a word, he stepped forward, collected the pieces. I'm sorry, Alice. Before leaving the room, Oscar lowered his head, smiling bitterly. So that's how you felt back then? I'm sorry I made you that sad. Chapter 10. The villa was mostly packed up. Everything I needed. I took. All the couple's items, the framed photos, the matching ceramic figurines we made together, I burned and threw away. Oscar came home just in time to see the debris scattered across the floor. He had lost all former dignity, half kneeling on the ground, frantically trying to piece together the broken ceramic doll. It won't fit. Why won't it fit? Of course broken things can't be put back together. The shards sliced his fingers. Blood mixed with tears. When Oscar looked up at me, tears clung to his lashes. Do you really hate everything related to me that much? Why destroy it all? Can't you leave me even a single memory? I said nothing, lowered my gaze, looking down at him from above. watching him lose control, watching him question me. So this was what it felt like. My silence was an answer. Oscar's voice weakened. He looked at me with an expression he had never shown before. Nervous, frightened, devastated. You really don't want me anymore? After so many years of marriage, when Oscar suggested living together for the final month, I already understood him. He had never taken my desire for divorce seriously. He thought I was just disappointed in him because of Ruth. He believed that spending a month with me, reliving the days when we once loved each other, would soften me, would make me regret. He was calculating me, and I was calculating him. I didn't expose his delusion. Instead, I urged him to register the divorce that very day. There are still 13 days left. I reminded him coldly and turned to leave. My attitude clearly provoked Oscar. That night, he climbed into my bed. Alice. He grabbed my hand and pressed it to his waist, smiling in a flattering, cautious way. Whatever he can do, I can do too. You can treat me however you want. Don't divorce me, okay? I cursed under my breath and shoved him away hard. My expression completely lost all control, disgust written all over my face. You want to get in my bed? Submit your medical records for the past 3 days to my assistant, along with your 30-day location history and the health reports of every woman you've slept with in the last month. Sleeping with him was impossible, but if he disgusted me, I'd return it tenfold. Oscar turned white instantly. You think I'm dirty? He asked, voice trembling in disbelief. I sneered. Shouldn't I? Chapter 11. Oscar went back on his word. 10 days before the final divorce registration, he changed his mind. Alice, let's not divorce, okay? I'll cut ties with Ruth completely. From now on, no more messy people disturbing our life. I'll only set off fireworks for you. We can travel. Didn't you always want to see the aurora? I couldn't be bothered to argue with him. The moment he backtracked, I had already notified the legal team. This divorce was happening, no matter what. Alice. Oscar couldn't stop me, watching me pull my suitcase toward the garage. He panicked and grabbed my wrist. As long as we don't divorce, you can do anything you want to me. His eyes were frighteningly red, and he forced out a shaky smile after several attempts. I won't question or interfere with you and him. Just let him be the side one, okay? As long as you come home, I just want you to come back home whenever you think of me. I shook off his hand. My mind was filled only with Santiago's noble yet helplessly in love expressions. He's not you. He can't be wronged. Oscar looked like he'd been stabbed straight through the heart. His breathing faltered instantly. His chest rose and fell sharply. He tried several times but couldn't form a complete sentence. As if in unbearable pain, I didn't want to stay another second. I turned and left. I didn't expect Oscar to follow. He drove one of my car, and followed me all the way to Santiago's place. Because the license plate was registered, neither the guard nor the system stopped him. I only took a quick shower. And downstairs, chaos broke out, things crashing, shouting. When I came down, both their faces were bruised. She's my wife. Oscar gritted the words through his teeth. Santiago's gaze was ice cold, sharp enough to cut. He didn't back down at all. Soon she won't be. The living room was a disaster. The carpet bunched up into a mess. The flowers I picked crushed into dry stems. The vase shattered across the floor. Water splashed all over Santiago. Just looking at it made my hands shake with anger. Alice. Oscar saw me and froze, suddenly unsure of himself. Only then did he seem to realize the state of the living room he had destroyed. It wasn't me, he hit first. I swung my arm with full force and slapped him viciously across the face. What the hell gives you the right to dump water on him? I didn't hold back at all. Every ounce of strength I had went into that slap. Oscar's head snapped to the side, a red handprint rising instantly. He stared, stunned for a moment. Then tears spilled out. You hit me because of him? Alice. We've known each other for 13 years, married for 7. You hit me for an outsider? He looked utterly humiliated, utterly wounded. I first grabbed a blanket and draped it over Santiago. Only then did I answer Oscar's question. Do you know why I ended up with him? I met Oscar's eyes and said it with cutting sarcasm. I had barely spoken to Santiago before, only saw him occasionally when following Oscar to gatherings with his friends. Until after the wedding, Oscar took a mistress to street racing. I went to look for him, only to be trapped in the club's changing room by his little mistress. She had someone pour paint all over my clothes, then tricked me into the changing room to change, and stole my phone. Of course she hadn't prepared spare clothes for me. She raised her phone, ready to record me walking out wearing nothing but my underwear. In the changing room, I ran into Santiago. He froze, then quietly took off his jacket and wrapped it around me. Outside, the people waiting got impatient and forced their way in. Santiago pulled me into a tiny cubicle, our bodies pressed together. He told them off, lent me his phone to call my assistant, and throughout the entire thing, he didn't say a single unnecessary word to me. Later, I was the one with ulterior motives. When the Law family collapsed, I watched their situation closely, and I stopped him the day he tried to jump into the river. You come with me, I'll help you and your sister get back what was yours. Even the entire Law family. The moment the agreement was made, we were destined to be entangled. Until death. Chapter 12. Stop talking. Oscar's spine collapsed inward as he looked at me pleadingly. Don't say it, Alice, please. He couldn't accept it. That he was the one who had personally pushed me into another man's arms. Oscar left, but not completely. His car stayed parked downstairs for the entire night. He told me he would show up on time to finalize the divorce certificate with me. I stared at the calendar every single day, and only when I finally held the divorce certificate in my hand did I exhale. At last, I no longer needed to worry about unexpected complications. In a good mood, I arranged a meal with Santiago Law's sister, Melissa. She was a highly capable woman. She grew faster than I expected. I appreciated her very much. When she first learned Santiago had sold himself to me for her sake, Melissa had come to challenge me. I cut straight to the point that day. She had no ability to protect herself yet, so posturing in front of me and trying to take Santiago away was pointless. Just 1 year later, she already controlled most of the Law family. Divorced? Melissa ordered pork tripe soup for me. This restaurant was one she frequented during her lowest days, and honestly, the food was excellent. I nodded. It was hard to define my relationship with Melissa. Enemies and allies. Admiration and rivalry. I reached into my pocket. Melissa tapped the table. No smoking. Have some manners. I laughed and motioned for her to look. There were only fruit candies in my hand. You quit? She looked genuinely surprised. I hummed softly. He doesn't like it. You two are really something. After a few rounds of drinks, I asked her why she hadn't insisted on taking Santiago away later. Setting aside her position in the Law family now, Santiago's paintings sold for sky-high prices these days. He had plenty of shares and assets. He no longer needed to depend on me. I thought he would leave, or that Melissa would take him. You think I didn't want to? She let out a harsh, frustrated snort, utterly disappointed in her brother. He was completely insane about it. He refused to leave. I told him back then your entanglements with the Ramos family ran too deep. That divorcing Oscar wouldn't be easy. You know what he said to me? Melissa lowered her gaze, mimicking Santiago's cold tone. If they don't divorce, then they don't. I'm young. I can wait. If I can't wait for them to divorce, I'll wait for him to die. Chapter 13. A week after the divorce, I met Oscar again. He came to discuss a business collaboration. Purely business. I forced myself to sit through an entire afternoon with him. The rest will be handled by others. You won't need to contact me. When things were nearly wrapped up, I checked my watch 3 times. Santiago was waiting for me to come home for dinner. Alice. Oscar stopped me and handed me a document. What's this? I asked, puzzled. You said before getting on your bed again, I'd need to submit medical records and a full report of my whereabouts. Oscar smiled. It's all here, Oscar. We're already divorced. I reminded him. I know. That's why you're single and I'm single. His voice lowered, slow and deliberate. I can pursue you again. First, there is no possibility between us. Second, I have a boyfriend. I thought that once we were divorced, I wouldn't have to deal with him anymore. I didn't expect him to still be this unhinged. I was exhausted. Oscar was hurt by my bluntness, but he still forced a smile. First, anything is possible. Second, The one who isn't loved is the side one. You and he aren't married. Even if you were, you could still divorce. I don't need a title. I can be the side one or the lesser one. Anything is fine. I'm the one who can't let you go. Alice. I thought Oscar was just saying things, but he meant them. Every day. He sent flowers to my office. He pieced together the photos and ceramic figurines. He set off even grander fireworks by the riverside. He was moved by himself. I was beyond annoyed, so I leaked his whereabouts to Ruth. During our divorce cooling-off period, Ruth, whether for the sake of climbing up or revenge, released photos of me and Santiago. Oscar had spoiled her to the point she believed the world would always open doors for her, until evidence of her being the third party, along with provocative bed photos and recordings, exploded across the internet. Disciplinary action. Fired. I then demanded compensation from her as part of marital joint property. Ruth came from an ordinary family, with a younger brother. Her parents cut ties with her. Relatives and friends saw her as a disgrace. Her life instantly collapsed to rock bottom. Now she clung to Oscar like a drowning person grabbing a life-saving reed. Blinded by infatuation, she initially still tried to win him back, until Oscar told her the truth. She was nothing but a plaything. He had never intended to divorce me to marry her. Ruth couldn't handle the reality gap. She went mad. She drove a car straight into Oscar, trying to die with him. When the police contacted me, I learned the call Oscar made to me had been his last phone call before he died. At that moment, I had been curled in Santiago's arms watching a movie. The warm, languid exhaustion after satisfaction made me drowsy. I declined 2 calls from unknown numbers, until the third one came through. Alice, please don't hang up after this call. I won't ever bother you again. He really did know how to predict a person. I sighed impatiently. What do you want to say? That night when we were 18, watching the meteor shower, you said your wish was to rise above everyone, to make the entire Ramos family look up to you one day. You did it. You asked me for years what I wished for that night. I never told you. At first I wanted to tease you. Later, I felt guilty. I didn't dare tell you. My wish that night was to live with you, die with you, and stay in love forever. His voice sounded a little strange, but still normal enough. Nothing that hinted these were his final words. Oscar cried as he spoke. I didn't even say my wish out loud, so why didn't it come true? In the end, he asked me 2 questions. Alice, will you forgive me? I said no. He paused, then asked again. Then, will you remember me? I still said no. Leaving the past in the past is a form of respect for the present. Those moments, bright or shadowed, I would not keep. After answering the police's questions, I adjusted my posture. Santiago's arms circled my waist, his fingers wearing the ring I'd slipped onto them. Winter, a soft blanket, a warm movie, heat and tenderness, the presence of someone you love. Happiness was almost overflowing. I looked at the little paper window decoration Santiago had stuck on the glass and said, "It's snowing." Santiago hummed softly, squeezed my fingers, and confessed without warning, "I love you." I hummed just like he did. Before he could complain about my lack of emotion, I added, "I love you too. Happy New Year."